Hey, babies, welcome back to another episode of the Hey Baby live podcast. I am your host, Miss Amber Kenni, and tonight I have the pleasure of speaking with Farmer Carly of Black Girls Cook. And tonight we're going to be talking about the experience and passion of a teacher and the impact of uncertainty in classroom safety. First of all, Farmer Carly, how are you today?
I'm well. The sun is shining. I'm healthy and well, so it's a blessed day for me.
Indeed. Any day above ground is a blessed day
Yes.
indeed.
Yes.
Well, Farmer Carly, I don't want to hold you up too long this evening. I know that you are a teacher in real life. So, being a teacher is definitely something that can take it out of you for sure. So, we ain't going to hold you up too long this evening tonight. Okay. So, mentioning that you are a teacher, we know that teachers have lives outside of the classroom, and you've decided to take your classroom with you to Black Girls Cook. What has this experience been like for you?
Okay, thank you. This experience of continuing my role of education outside of the classroom has been a breath of fresh air. It's been fun because I have a lot more creative freedom with the lessons I'm able to curate for the participants, and I'm able to teach what I want to teach in the ways I want to teach it. Working as a teacher in the school has afforded me the chance to understand how to analyze a student to really help them wherever they are developmentally. So with applying that to Black Girls Cook, I'm able to know how to meet the student where they are so that they can love what we are doing together as opposed to loathing it and feeling like they're doing it because they have to. One of my favorite parts of being an educator is being able to learn alongside my students. And with Black Girls Cook, I'm able to do that with my passion, which although I love reading and I love writing, I love having my hands in the soil. So when girls are able to tell me something they know about plants or about gardening, it just it brightens my whole week. And I love it so much. And I love it because that knowledge that I learned from them or that we learn together, I know it transcends the classroom. It transcends school, period. Like it goes into their lives. They're able to share that knowledge about land and about farming with other people too. So being able to apply the educator role to Black Girls Cook has been, like I said, a breath of fresh air.
You know what? And I can completely identify with that, both as a former student and a former educator. I know things that I was taught outside of the classroom from my teachers, and I think about those things still to this day. And also, as an educator, it's so important for us to be able to teach them lessons that they don't necessarily memorize,
Right.
but they internalize
Yeah.
things that they can remember for years and years and years to come, and they apply those things to their lives. So I'm so happy to hear that you are passionate about your job as an educator. And I also understand that sometimes the classroom is not big enough for everything that we want to do. We have to teach within a curriculum in the
Right.
classroom. So being able to educate students outside of the traditional school setting is always rewarding. And I'm just so glad that you're able to do that also.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that you love seeing your students outside of the classroom at Black Girls Cook learn new things and apply it to their own life. And I'm interested to know, how do you foster positive self esteem and positive growth, self growth for your students at Black Girl Cook?
Yeah, I try to show it. So as often as possible, whenever I hear negative self-talk amongst any young person, whether it's at Black Girls Cook, here in my neighborhood, at my school, I try to discredit it. I try to offer up any quick suggestion that will counter whatever they're saying about themselves, about their community, about their surroundings, their peers. With Black Girls Cook, it's a lot less often that I'm hearing negative self-esteem or negative self-talk, but at school I do hear it very often, especially because of the age group that I work with, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds. They're just
Middle
so
schoolers.
sensitive. Yes, they're so sensitive and they need you to affirm them, but they don't always put it in those words. They won't necessarily let you know, like, I need to pick me up or I feel ugly right now. They'll say stuff like that, but they're not also adding I need you to compliment me. So I try to offer it because I know that if I were in their shoes, when I was in their shoes, there were times I was the same way where all I needed was to hear the opposite of what I was feeling about myself or saying about myself. I also try to reprimand them with compliments first, because I want them to know what you're currently doing is not showing your best self, and you know that, and I know that, but I want to make sure they know that they are better than whatever they're doing. So I lead with a compliment before I reprimand students. But two things that they always hear from me is that they are the main character in their own success story. I love being able to, like, use a pun as an ELA teacher whenever I can. So
Of
that's
course.
one that I actually wrote on like an assessment last year for them. And another one is that they need to be doing things for their future self, and to always have that future person, that future Carly for myself, but anybody, your future self needs to be who is at the forefront of your mind when you're making present decisions or present choices. So I try to, be real with them, but also be positively real, because they need that. There's just so much negativity that they're absorbing all the time. So I just try to be what I want them to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, it makes perfect sense. You are leading by example, and that is something that our youth need to see on a daily basis. And it also sounds like you're teaching them emotional intelligence. It is okay to need some external validation every now and then, especially if it's coming from a healthy place. So I commend you for not just being an educator, but you're also a mentor for these students, and they absolutely need it, especially since we are training up the leaders of tomorrow. That's
Exactly.
a very, very important thing for our leaders of tomorrow to possess.
Mhm.
So it sounds like, and you let me know, would you say that you are passionate about the youth? And if so, where does that passion stem from?
Absolutely. I have a fiery passion for the holistic well-being of the youth, I would
Oh,
say.
I love that.
Um,
Explain that. The
Yes, thank you.
holistic
So
well
when I
being
say
of
that,
youth.
like, although I'm a teacher and I work with students to help them learn how to read and write, I care about their mental health. I care about their physical wellness, what they're eating. Like, my students offer me their fruit just so I can save it in my classroom and give it back to their next classmate. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of that stuff is so incredibly important to me. I don't even look at them as students. Like, I know in terms of boundaries, I probably should, but they feel like my children,
Yeah.
like they feel like, even if not my birth children, like my family, my cousins, my
Your
youngest
village.
sibling, my village, exactly. So
Yes,
I care about them entirely, not just as my English student. Since I was a teen, I've been a firm believer that, like you just said, actually, the youth are the leaders of tomorrow.
they are.
Because of that, and because I know that every single day I'm looking in the faces of my students and looking at the people that will one day be leading here in the same country that we live in and share in together, it's both a privilege but also a responsibility of mine to make sure I'm doing so in a positive manner. So I
Yes.
would say I'm passionate about leading the youth, and I have been since I was one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I share your passion. I share your fiery passion
Thank you.
for the youth. I remember when I was an educator, I used to collect snacks for my students as well. I worked at a low income middle school,
Yeah.
and they would bring around breakfast every morning. And there was always a baby who did not get to school on time for one reason
Exactly.
or another.
Mhm.
But they also, if they don't get to school on time, they don't get to
They
eat
don't get
breakfast in the
breakfast,
morning.
right?
So
Exactly.
I would take it upon myself to collect some of the non-perishable items that they
Yes.
would bring just to make sure those babies eat in the morning, because you and I both know full well that if a student does not have certain pillars fulfilled
Yeah.
when they are coming to school, they are not able
They can't
to.
process what I'm saying out of my mouth,
Yes, they have.
Like, it's going
They are
in
not
one ear and
able.
not even making its way out the other. It's just getting jumbled somewhere in there.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that is something that we have to actively work to change within our school system. And also, I mentioned on a former podcast, or a podcast prior to this one, podcast episode, I should say, because it was on this podcast. But I mentioned how there is no community without the kids. So
Absolutely.
we always have to make sure that we are creating space for the babies, whether it is emotionally intelligent ways that we are teaching them how to be emotionally intelligent, whether it is us teaching them how to cultivate the land as you do. And there are so many other ways that we are able to cultivate our youth, because, again, like we mentioned before, they are the future of tomorrow. They are our leaders, they are our future business owners, they are tomorrow. And
Exactly.
so it's so important for us to continue to pour into our youth and teach them what we learned along the way. And I'm so happy to hear that you have had a passion since you were a youth yourself.
Yes.
So, again, thank you for being who you are. And thank you for talking about what you do on our podcast.
Of course. Thank
But
you.
I don't want to like go too far, you know.
Oh, no, I
Look,
appreciate you. Like, I love
it's
being
my
able
pleasure.
to speak on this as well. So thank you for offering this opportunity.
I'm so happy to be able to provide a platform for people within our community who are doing really positive work. Um, and also, they're doing positive work that is going to impact generations to come for years and years to come. So, speaking of impacting generations to come, what is it like being a middle school educator in 2023? How do you feel this generation of students is different from the ones before?
So, although my repeating this started as a joke last year, I have a smile on my face too. I mean this with a straight internal face. It feels like being at war sometimes as a middle school
No,
teacher.
that's real.
Yeah, like there are periods of peace, but often it feels like a battle. And a lot of it stems from what is physically in the control, but also systemically out of my students' control. So it's like a really difficult space to be in as a middle school educator, especially now in 2023. This current generation is so different from the ones before because of recent events like the pandemic that forced a disconnect from humans in the physical classroom environment
Yes.
during what I believe is the most inconvenient time for the youth. I think that when you are first going through puberty and first like introducing yourself to not higher ed yet, but like you're advancing academically, you need to be around other children. And
Yes.
because of them not being around other children while they were introducing themselves to middle school, a lot of what we do in the classroom right now is not teaching. It's like behavior stuff, and it's just not what we
Right.
signed up for. It's very difficult to want to do it every single day, so you have to, like I said earlier, have a passion for them as individuals outside of the
Right.
class that you teach. But several of them are still readjusting to just being in academic settings to learn, as opposed to being in a place where they see the friends that they play video games with until umpteenth hours of the evening. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
um on the flip side, though, social media has made it so that they are addicted to being connected, but not in genuine ways. Like they want to stay on their phones, or they want to stay on technology. They don't want to be a part of conversation, while others may want to. So all of them being in the same environment at the same time, having different interests and different environments that they go home to, it's very difficult to like kind of reset once we get back in the classroom each day. But yeah, so it's hard, but it's like bittersweet. It's bittersweet because there, like I
Sure.
said earlier, there are moments of peace. And those are the ones that I really hold on to.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this generation is one of the generations that had to come up where we are constantly having the threat of this our safety in the classroom. So do you ever think, because you mentioned that they connect on social media and they also probably see a whole lot of things on social media that have impacted their mental health, they've impacted the way they see the world, and
Yeah.
one of those things is a threat to our classroom safety. So do you ever think about the threat that these tragedies pose to the mental health of our students, and how about your own mental health as an educator?
Yes. So I actually overthink about my students' mental health when it's layered with all of the tragedies that they internalize from the internet, from their own neighborhoods, from the country they live in, from the world we live in,
Yes.
and all of those forces that are against them just in general. On the other hand, I'm just starting to begin taking care of my own mental health regarding
Wow.
such tragedies. And I know that's really bad to say because I'm
It's
old,
understandable.
but it's, yeah, it just is what it is, especially in the shoes that I fill, because a lot of the times as an educator, I have to put my feelings on the back burner when
Mm-hmm.
things are randomly and inappropriately like spurted out in class. Sometimes they uplift violence that's taking place in the neighborhood at the most random, but
Mm-hmm.
it's because it's weighing on their hearts. Conversations, because it's just emotionally taxing for me to talk about violence personally, but also we only have 70 minutes together and I'm being expected to teach the content. I know that they come to me to speak on such things because they trust that they can, view me as an outlet. So I do
Right.
try to offer those spaces. I try to give up lunchtime for them to, come and just chill and talk to me then.
Wow.
But in terms of myself, recently, especially now that the season is back, the gardening season has reawakened for us. A lot of the time,
Yes.
gardening is what I use to like reset myself.
That's an outlet for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, like it's just healing. It's been so healing. It's literally showing me that despite all the life-taking events that can take place throughout the day that I'm told about that I may not want to hear about or have to talk about because my students need to talk about it, gardening is literally life-giving. And so because it's life-giving, I'm able to look at it as a place where my brain can kind of reflourish into the happy and positive brain that I want to have, as opposed to the overwhelmed and overstimulated and like bogged down with negativity brain that I
Yes.
kind of can curate throughout the day of being in the
Yes.
medical classroom.
Absolutely. And as a fellow nature girl, I completely understand the feeling of being able to disconnect and reconnect with nature. That's very important. And if you're listening to this podcast, 10 out of 10, highly recommend
Yes, go put your hands
you
to your
go
feet,
put your
something in
hands
some
in,
soil.
yes, go put your hands and your feet
Yes,
in some dirt
yes,
immediately. Okay. So you mentioned that you only have 70 minutes to teach the content that you have to teach.
right.
And then your students are also kind of reeling through their lives outside of school in the classroom.
Mhm.
Do you feel that teachers have the resources that they need at this stage to be successful with this generation? And then what, as a community, can we do to better prepare them?
Yeah. I feel that teachers have access to the resources, but aren't always told how to acquire them or implement them at a convenient time for the school year. I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes like we may find out about something that could have changed the game in September all the way
Right.
in March, you know what I'm
March.
saying? So
Yep.
it's like you can't really apply it anymore. Maybe next year, but not
Right.
right now. But I also feel like there are major resources that we need that we could be given if things were just tweaked a little bit, systemically speaking, like
Yes.
time, and more bodies to offer up non-content related things, like non-school related things, but more so like emotional and social things, like going outside to jog just to get your body moving because you need a break, or
Yes. And not
having
just in
someone to talk
PE.
to. Yeah, exactly. Not just PE, but like maybe you don't want to run. Maybe instead you want to hula hoop for 30 minutes. Like
Right.
offering those kinds of spaces, but specifically those kinds of people to offer those spaces. You know what I'm saying? Because as a
Yes.
teacher, like we already wear 12 hats. We can't also take people
Correct.
outside for recess. You know what I'm saying? So
I used to, child. Look,
yes.
I used to have my seventh graders outside kicking the soccer
Same.
ball back
Oh,
and
me too.
forth.
What any chance I had to take our books and our
Yes.
pencils outside, we are outside. But
Yeah.
yeah, as a community though, we need more people who are flexible, who have flexible work schedules to offer their time.
Mm-hmm.
But even outside of school, we need to also make sure that after school hours, students' well-being is being protected. They need to be eating healthy foods that are nourishing their bodies and their brains. They need to be able to have like creative and screen-free outlets and breaks that don't offer them the chance to like stay on a phone, but instead like have to like interact with other people and get outside, feel the sun on your skin. Like you've been indoors all day. You know what I'm saying? You've been holding technology all day. They need those kinds of breaks from those things. They need spaces where they can express their emotions. Some children need to be able to be angry and not have that pushed out of them because some of them are
Yes.
facing things that result in anger, and they need to have those safe and healthy places to express those things as well as their joy. So just
I
offering
agree.
those places and realizing that all of us play a role in their development, like getting back to that village mindset, is what us as educators need for our students in and
Yes.
out of the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
The school setting is definitely a village. It is not an individualistic society by any means. It is 1000% collectivistic. And if you are willing to work together with your students, not only will you build lifelong lasting relationships, you will have lifelong lasting impacts in their lives that they will go on to use to impact their world in a different way as well.
Sometimes
And
it really does feel so thankless, but that's something that I'm reminded of a lot. Like even just seeing, I'm a second year teacher. Like I feel like I've been doing it for 30 years after these
Yeah,
past 2 years,
it's like
but
that. It's like
it's
that.
really only
Yeah.
been 2 years. But even seeing my now eighth graders who were formerly my seventh graders last year and how much they've matured, not saying it's because of me, but being able to hear like, thank you for blah, 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 Miss G, like that, it brightens my day, even though only a year ago it felt like they couldn't stand me because of X, Y, and Z, like
Yeah.
learning not to take it personally and instead
Familiarity
realizing
breeds
like,
contempt.
yeah, like you, instead of thinking like it's against you, but you're simply playing a role in their life, like
Right.
it helps a lot, It helps to keep you wanting to stay in this position, but also motivating you to continue doing what you're doing for the youth. So
Absolutely. Well, Farmer Carly, I want to thank you for your time here this evening. We have one more question that we ask all of our guests, and I want you to answer it as authentically to yourself as you possibly can, which I know you will. And our final question for the evening is, how do you celebrate yourself? And then how do you celebrate others?
Okay, I'm gonna start with others first because I
Please.
do that naturally. But I love feeling like a ray of sunshine in people's lives. I have not always felt this way. So since I like to say the switch has gone off for me to feel this way, it wasn't really a switch. It was a lot of self work that I did, a lot of prayer work that I did.
Okay. Yes.
But feeling this way naturally now, I love to continue to do that any chance I had. I love to uplift people with physical compliments. I also like to just offer affirmations. I pray. I'm a prayer warrior, so I simply pray sometimes, offering up uh positive vibes for people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But in terms of myself, like I said earlier, in terms of still working on my own mental health,
Mhm.
I still am working on celebrating myself as well. Something I've done since I was a child, though,
Mhm.
which I can't really tell you where it started or where it stemmed from, but I just know I've been doing it since I was able to see diary pages from like 5 and 6 years old. Is documenting my existence. So either
Wow.
drawing a picture or taking a picture or writing a poem or writing a letter about that day or anything of that nature, as well as making sure the date is on that piece of paper, I document my existence. And I love to look back on my growth, my blossoming, I guess you could say. Um,
Yes.
just to see like how I've trained or changed and like transitioned from certain periods of my life. Um,
Yes.
and it's always been my favorite thing to do is just document my existence. So I guess that's how I celebrate myself. And yeah, be a ray of sunshine for others. That's how I celebrate them.
Yes, period, Fran. I am worthy just because I exist. I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. And somebody heard that on this podcast right now. It touched them, and they are just going to document their existence. They are going to learn that they are worthy just because they exist.
Too
So,
many of
again,
our ancestors could not document their existence. So make
let's
sure you
let's
do it
talk
for
about it.
this
Yes,
generation.
absolutely.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Exactly. We don't know enough about our ancestors because they were not able to document their own existence.
Exactly.
And that is a bar. And I think that's a perfect place to end our conversation here
Me
this evening.
too. Yes.
Thank you so much for Farmer Carly for being here this evening and sharing not only your insight but your expertise with the youth. We're going to have to talk about your agricultural
Yes.
strengths at
Let's talk
another
another
time.
time. I would love to. I would love to.
Yes, absolutely. Because you know what? We need to learn how to cultivate the land in
We do.
2023.
That's a
Simply,
life skill. That's a
it
lost
is.
ancestral art skill that we need to
Yes, it
pick back
is.
up. So, if anything, that's what Black Girls Cook is also trying to do. Remind our young Black girls here in Baltimore City and in Miami and wherever else we may hopefully grow to one day too, that this is work that we are supposed to know how to do. We were
Yes.
supposed to know how to do this for generations and we need to get back to it so we don't lose the skills forever?
Yes. Yes,
We will have that
absolutely.
conversation, ma'am. We surely will.
Yes, we must. We must. We
Yes.
absolutely must. Well, thank you again, Farmer Carly, for being here. Thank you, Black Girls Cook, for allowing Farmer Carly to be here this
Yes.
evening. We love you. We appreciate you.
Thank
And
you.
if you are not already following the Heeey Baby Live podcast on Instagram, definitely go do that. It is Heeey Baby underscore live. If you are not already following me, Miss Amber Kenni, you can follow me on Instagram at MS Amber, Kenni. And then you can also find me on TikTok at MISS Kenni, Kenni on TikTok. Farmer Carly, is there anywhere that people can find you off of our podcast?
Not right now, but maybe in the upcoming future there might be a page called Mrs. Garvin's Garden.
Oh,
maybe.
I love that. That gave a children's book a little bit.
Yes, maybe
Like,
like a little SEO place for outside the
oh,
classroom.
yes.
But since
Oh,
they want to
I'm
be
gonna
on their
be
phones
I'm
all
gonna
the
be in
time,
there.
go somewhere positive. You know what I'm saying?
I love to see it. I
Yeah.
love to see it. And also, y'all, if you're not following Black Girls Cook on Instagram, definitely go check out the work that they're doing and give them a follow, give them a comment, a like, a share, because they are doing phenomenal work in the community. We obviously see that Miss Farmer Carly here is a product of the phenomenal work that they are doing in the community.
Thank you.
So, anyway, friends, thank you all for tuning into this conversation this evening. And as always, stay awesome and always go where you are celebrated and not where you are tolerated. And don't take nothing less. Point blank, period.